John, thanks for joining us. What concerns you or should concern you or us about the so-called partnership that the Saudi investment fund has with the PGA Tour moving forward?
Well, the micro is we're seeing just how rough this all is and how hastily this came together and how many steps still need to be completed, how much, this still has to pass regulators, a lot of details. Even this 5, 6 page framework that we saw still sort of leaves more questions unanswered than answered. And I think the bigger picture is just what is our comfort level with this investment fund and this kind of money coming into sports. Some of this is the morals that Jay Monahan, among others, have alluded to, but also some of this is just what does it do to sports when one of the players has a completely different set of economics than everybody else?
Well, you've talked about this, that your return on investment. Most people get into sports, buy a team, and there's a return on investment. The Saudis aren't concerned about that.
Well, they want a return on investment. It's just a much different, Dan Snyder, whatever. Josh Harris buys a team from Dan Snyder, and he's, here are broadcast contracts, and here are the suites, and here's some real estate play I can make. This is a completely different set of math with the Saudis. This is about rebranding a country, and there's this Vision 2030 plan with this sort of national plan to completely transform the country, and sports figures very prominently. That's a lot different of a balance sheet than are we selling enough suites and are we going to get our media rights renewed?
But are they really trying to change, or are they trying to give the appearance that they're trying to change?
That's the great question. And when I went to Saudi Arabia, I mean, to their credit, I sat down across from the sports minister and they made him available. And on the one hand, they were saying, we don't even think sports washing is a thing. Look, we're lucky enough to have a lot of money and we're going to invest it in sports. It's a great way to motivate the kids. We have a young population. We'll put down your phone and your chalupa and start running laps, and it's a great way to. And then on the other hand, they said, look at all these cranes. We're really trying to update our economy. We're trying to diversify. Look at all this growth and development and tourism. So on the one hand, this sort of, it's not about throwing money around. It's not about laundering a reputation. It's just about helping the kids. And then they would pivot and say, sports is one of the pillars of this national transformation.
How nervous were you?
I think not, because one thing that became really clear was that this Jamal Khashoggi, this murder, dismemberment, 5 years later is still the first thing that people cling on to. When everyone's trying to build a sports washing case, this is the first thing that they have to answer for. And I think that it's crass and vulgar to think of it in these terms, but this was a horrible mistake that probably cost them $1 trillion. I mean, this is the very first thing when sports washing comes up is the dismemberment of a journalist. And so I think they know that they have a lot to answer for. And this is, there's a set of talking points, and they still deny the content of the CIA report that this went all the way up to MBS to Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, and that he had either ordered it or okayed it. They still take issue with that, but I think they know that this is something that this murder, I think, has accelerated all of this investment in sports washing, because they've really had to double down on saying to the rest of the world, hey, wait, we're just like you. We love Bruno Mars, and we love the NBA, golf, and soccer as well.
What else will the Saudis buy? NFL, NBA, baseball, are they interested in that?
Absolutely. I mean, part of it is just we all love sports. These franchises don't go down in value. It's a great way to build bridges and tear down walls. I mean, I also think just practically these teams get bought by individuals. And when it's, when it's Marge Schott and, Red McCombs and the local car deal, we're not in that era anymore. I mean, these are $4, $5, $6 billion properties. There are not a lot of individuals that have that spare change lying around. I mean, I just think as franchise values go up, it stands to reason that we're going to have to go outside the U.S. to find these billionaires. But, these investment funds we saw this week that, Ted Leonsis and in Washington, it's not Saudi, it's Qatari, but they're taking a minority stake in, the Wizards and the Mystics and the Capitals. We're seeing inevitably now, there was an announcement a few days ago that Saudi is looking into partnering with tennis. I mean, I think this beachhead, this sort of normalization with the PGA, I think is going to lead to a much bigger Saudi presence in sports. I think we got to spend 30 seconds. Like, I don't, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe this really is a way to break down boundaries. The athletes love it. Values, money is getting, look at the PGA Tour. I mean, money is being inserted into the ecosystem. I mean, I think we're all rightfully cynical, but I also think that we ought to reserve like a little column for, hey, maybe this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I know we can be hypocritical on a variety of fronts here. We're talking to Jon Wertheim, the 60 Minutes correspondent. I'm also wondering about this, that you had this back and forth with the Saudi. I don't know what his official title is, the Minister of Sports, where you were talking about the beheadings, that they had like 80 people who were beheaded, if that's the number. And then he brought up, well, you had this mass shooting in Texas. And then you said, yeah, but that wasn't government ordered there. And I thought it was an interesting exchange between you two. What was the room like when that exchange happened, John?
Yeah, there were some tense moments there. I mean, I think the playbook, and we saw this, right? I mean, I sort of got a little preview. Sometimes you go back, you do your research, and you sort of anticipate what responses are. And in this case, I think the golfers gave me a lot of sense of what to anticipate, because everyone's got the same talking points, which is no one is perfect. We all wish we lived in a peaceful world. Wake me up. Tea without the first. If you live in a perfect country, raise your hand. I would say there ought to be some basic standards. And yeah, I mean, the mass shootings are terrible. We wish we didn't have them, but I would submit there's a difference between that and especially when, I mean, the other part of that is especially when A, the state actor is the one making the investment, and B, when this is part of a strategy. People have also, well, I don't understand, you have an iPhone, or how come we don't care that the Saudi has a big take in Facebook and so many American companies? They haven't invested in Facebook as a strategy for rebranding the country. And I think that's the distinction I would make.